Thank you for giving this video a try. It'll be video number 1 in a tutorial series on Postman. The goal is to keep these videos short and to the point, so call it 5 minutes each, and this will be part 1, which I've labeled Introductions. The intent of this video is to cover what is this Postman thing anyway, why might you want to use it, and hopefully a little bit of how do you get started. And so the best way to get started is, of course, to get going. Shall we? All right. And so when you first have Postman opened, you'll have about this view. Now, of course, I'm not going to walk you through to installing this. I believe you're very capable, but I will include a link so that you can go get it. Postman is a tool to allow you to interact with the server that may be behind your application without having to use the UI. It simulates the same requests that the UI would send to the server on your behalf. Now you get direct access to them. Now, where this thing becomes very useful is in the things it allows you to do with those requests later. So of course, don't expect to see all of the value that I'll mention in this video the first time you try it out. It's going to take a little bit of getting used to, sort of like riding a bike. But let's start talking about what is this Postman thing at a little more granular level. Postman submits requests, that is, individual commands to the server on your behalf, much like your browser does. Except where in your browser, when you hit a button, it sends a request and kind of hides that from you. Postman, you are literally writing out a letter yourself with the heading, the address, and all of the contents that need to be there, and then handing Postman to say, please go do this. He runs off, hands it to the server. The server parses it, decides what to do, and sends its response in a similar letter back to you. Whereas if you were doing that in the browser would then take it, interpret the response, and then do something for you. So it's cutting out that middleman of the browser. Now, don't get me wrong, browsers are great, and we're going to leverage them to help in this series. But sometimes it will be useful to go around the browser. Perhaps sometimes your UI isn't ready yet. Or perhaps you want to be able to move faster than manually typing in values through the UI might allow you to go. This, of course, starts talking about some of those values you won't see day one, because you're going to have to interact with Postman to teach it how to submit the letters you want to go. And so that's some of what I'm going to start this how would I use it video on. But of course, to do that, I need to have some kind of a backend to interact with. So let's jump over to the browser and I'll show you the one we're going to use. Now, as y'all can see by the color of my pallid skin, that is immediately a lot brighter. But my JSON server from Typicode is a wonderful fake online REST server that allows you to test some of the interactions you need. You can, of course, as you can see over here, host your own fake server, which we will use later in this series. But for now, we're going to use the default one. So grab that URL, copy it, and then let's head back to Postman. Okay? See you there. Now, back in Postman, let's go through the process of creating a request. A request is, as I mentioned earlier, the command you want Postman to send to the server on your behalf. There are really two ways to do this directly. There is the big fancy new button, or just click plus, sort of like your browser tabs. Let's do that one for now. So I'm going to click plus, and here I have my untitled request. There are a couple of big parts for a very simple request. There's the verb, and the URL. The URL will be composed, of course, of a domain and a route. So let's start simply and add our domain. And I want to see what users we have in the system. And so I'm going to say get users. And so Postman, go get the users, please. I send a request and I get a response and I get one user. Oh, I'm sorry, I get many users, not just one. Here's user one, user two, and so on. And you can see the size is pretty big. I wonder if I can get a single user. I want to get user number 3, please. Go. Okay, user number 3, and you can see the size is much smaller here. And I have Miss Clementine Bach under the username Samantha. So with that, I can now demonstrate that we have this verb. What do I want Postman to tell the server to do? What server do I want it to go to? And what area do I need to tell the server, hey, I want you to select from there, and then how specifically to limit it as a broad stroke of the pen. Now, before we go any further, let's go ahead and save this request as not this name, because that doesn't make sense, but as a human readable name. Let's say get user 3. Very simple. And save it under the YouTube series collection. And so I now have get user 3. Now, the next step would be to see if I could post a to-do to this new system. So having gotten users, I would imagine doing the post of a to-do would be relatively simple, but I don't know the structure yet. So let's use the get command, which we already understand a little bit of, to help us learn. Let's go add a new request. We will use the same domain. Let's go to the to-dos and get all of them and send. Okay, we got quite a number of to-dos by the size of this, and it looks like they have generally four values in this structure: a user ID, an ID, a title, and a completed state. So let us take one of these, and I'm just going to copy and paste it, and I'm going to create a new post request. Now, the difference between a get and a post is a get is a request for information, like a normal, hey, can I have? It's to ask a question, where a post is to give a statement, go and do, or here is my contribution. And they therefore come in with a little extra information, which is typically called the body, like the body of your letter. So select the raw format, and instead of text, let's tell it to be JSON. And I'm going to paste the body I have here. We're going to remove the ID, since we're creating a new one. The database will not have assigned it one yet. And I will remove the completed status, because honestly, I don't think I want to tell it whether it's completed upon creating a new one. And I will retitle it from whatever that is to this is a to-do. And instead of user 1, we'll use user 3, which is the one I know exists in the system. Now, of course, there's the matter of the URL. Well, let's try this same URL that we had for the get all to-dos and say, hey, server, let me post a new to-do. And we shall send the command. And lo and behold, it has said, okay, to-do, this is a to-do for user 3, now has ID 201. Congratulations. And it mentions, by the way, 201 created. Don't worry, the 201 here is not the same as there. That's actually an HTTP response. And I will also include a link in the down there for you guys to see that. Now, of course, if I'm doing all of this in my system and I'm just testing about it, I really should make certain I clean up after myself. And that'll be the last step for today. The third and final step for today will be to delete the test data we just created. Now, of course, to do that, I really should look at specifying which one I wanted to delete. After all, when I did my get, I was requesting all of them from the server. I was asking the server a general question. It's like, hey, what to-dos do you have? When I was creating one, I couldn't tell it which one because I was creating a brand new one. So I just said, hey, I would like to add this to the pile. But this time I'm going to have to specifically say, hey, server, that one right there, please take it off the board. So for now, let's create a new request and make it a delete kind, because naturally, delete, backspace, you get the kind of concept, and it's really the same thing here. We'll use the same base URL for the deletion, because after all, this is in the to-dos area. But you remember when I was getting the specific user, I included this last little piece there, the actual /3, which says not all users, but this user. And that's what we're going to do here. But I need a different ID, of course. So let's use the ID that the server gave us back, 201, to specifically delete that one. So 201. And we will send this request or instruction to the server, and it will go and come back and we'll say, sure, okay. And it sent me a 200 response, which means everything is now correct. So let's just verify that everything is in fact cleaned up. I will go to get to dos, copy, and paste, and slash say get me 201 and send. And it will say 404 not found. That is, request to do 201 does not exist in your demo server. And under normal circumstances, that would mean that our job is complete. So I don't want to mislead you. The demo server doesn't save the data you have between requests, but it is very useful for exploring, because naturally it said the delete was taken care of for 201. If I had requested 201 after posting it, I wouldn't have gotten it. I would have gotten a 404 response as well. But I wanted to demonstrate to you how you might create a delete and learn from your previous actions in the system how to do it. And that was really the point here. that brings us then to the end of our Postman tutorial part 1 introductions video. Thank you guys for sitting with me through it. That was admittedly longer than the 5 minutes I had targeted, but I hope the content was worth the time you spent for it. As you saw, I was saving those requests to a collection, and I will be uploading that to the GitHub repository I mentioned earlier in the video. However, that GitHub repository isn't ready yet, so I'll be uploading it with one of the later videos. That said, I'll make sure and update it down there when I do, so that you can get access to it too. If you've enjoyed this tutorial, I hope you might check out my blog as well at daniel.scheifler.io, and I thank you very much for the time you spent. Hopefully the content that you'll find at the blog is of similarly entertaining quality and that it will serve you equally well. With that said, I'll hopefully see you back in video number 2. Until then, ciao.